Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am your host, Solaris BluerRaven. My wonderful guest tonight is Steve Colbern. Steve, we're touching on some a UFO or portal of a UFO that or Dr. Roger Leir saw. Do you want to finish up that story?
Oh yeah, on a trip to Turkey, he was seeing these craft going in and out of the ocean off the coast of Turkey. I think it was in the Adriatic Sea almost every night for a couple of weeks, and he and a Turkish film crew. In one of the footages they had of these objects, of the same, I think it was the same one every night. This object caught two grays looking out the portholes of this object, and it was pretty clear film. In fact, if people want to Google it, they can probably find the footage. Dr. Roger Leir, Turkish UFO, grays, or something like that. That it should come up.
Mm-hmm. Sounds. Yeah, I think I did see that a long time ago. That sounds really familiar. But I probably did see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's some of the best occupant footage I've ever seen. In fact, it's probably the only occupant footage I've ever seen.
Right. Yeah. Most of the time, it's usually like a light or something. And another thing is, I was discussing this with a guest of mine last night, and he was discussing that there were no occupants in a lot of the aircraft. In other words, it seemed like it was under remote control or some kind of a different intelligent design. So I was curious as to
there are a whole network of thousands of them that are unmanned. There's various sizes from about an inch across to the size of a softball to the size of a basketball. I'm not sure if there's any larger than that, but those three sizes are definitely unmanned, and there's thousands of them worldwide that gather information for the grays, and a lot of them dock with these snake-like things. Hundreds of them dock with these snake-like things in various areas that are usually up at around 100,000 feet, too high to see from the ground. Jaime Maussan has some good films of those if you want to look that up on the internet.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And you say those are ours in the Black Science or Black Space program, or are those off-world, do you think?
Those are off-world, although I think they share the data with our space program. They've become kind of a hazard to navigation in some areas, especially in Mexico. They've had several collisions and near collisions between these probes and aircraft.
What are they made out of? Plasma, or is it something else?
Actually, Jaime Maussan has a crash sphere that I wrote a report on, and I analyzed it. I was allowed to analyze pieces of it and wrote a report on it. And they're made of a titanium alloy with this is pretty similar to earthly titanium aircraft alloys, and there are carbon nanotube electronics embedded in the metal, and the propulsion presumably is by the bifield Brown effect, the capacitive bifield Brown effect, with capacitors also embedded in the metal, and I think they're probably beaming power to the devices via scalar microwaves. The spherical shape is a perfect microwave antenna or scalar wave antenna.
That's very interesting.
And one strange characteristic of the sphere was that the Mexican government tested it before I did, and they hit it with an acetylene torch and found out that it changed the heat of the torch directly into high voltage electricity in a plasma envelope around the device.
Wow.
And probably for that reason, the acetylene torch would not melt the titanium, although it's more than hot enough to do so.
That's fascinating. It's almost like it's intelligent, huh?
I don't think they're intelligent, but I think they're hooked into a system that's intelligent.
Right.
The Greys have a computer system that connects all the individuals in their society together telepathically. I'm not convinced that true AI just via a computer alone is possible, but if you combine a computer and minds, it is at that point.
Absolutely.
I was going to get your opinion on that, whether you think that true AI is possible with a computer. I know it's not possible with the technology we're currently using.
Correct. Yeah, that's why they use us as hosts or try to access us. We are compatible with machines, there's no doubt. And we are naturally telepathic. All they do is hijack that natural electromagnetic neural circuitry and, of course, our psychic abilities in our centers, and then interface it onto the communication system. And then they create their synthesized version of telepathy, which, of course, is, in my opinion, a poor man's version versus what you're talking about. And when you talk about the Greys, let's be a little more clear about their description. Now, are these units, are these like drones? Are these like, what exactly are they? They're not really aliens, right? Or are they?
Well, yes and no. I mean, they told the government, and I think they were probably telling the truth, that they've been coming here for about 10,000 years. We're talking about a species called the short grays. They're the ones that do most of the abductions. The grays are actually an alliance of at least 5 similar species, and they're species that have had technology for a long time and have genetically engineered themselves. The short grays, as the military's opinion, they were genetically engineered for long-distance space flight. And most gray species have different castes. They're kind of insect-like. They're a hive mind. They're all connected together telepathically. All the experiences of every individual get put into a big computer system, and they get input from the hive. They're not controlled by the hive like the Borg, but they get a lot of input. Then there's a worker caste. There's 3 basic castes to most gray species: a worker caste, middle management, scientist class, and a leader caste. And as you go up in caste stature, they get physically taller. The workers are short, with the short grays are about 4 feet tall. The middle management guys are about 5.5 feet tall, and the leader caste is about 6-7 feet tall. And the leader caste looks like a giant praying mantis, and the middle management caste is the type you usually see in the movies, with the long faces, the wraparound, the big, huge wraparound black eyes, long arms, long fingers, and the workers have somewhat smaller heads, and they're somewhat smaller, but look similar to the other castes, but their eyes are a bit smaller. There's like a thin slit for a mouth, small or no ears, and a very small nose. And they have bluish-gray skin. They take in nutrients through their skin or through the mouth membrane. They don't have a digestive system. That was part of the reason the military said they were genetically engineered for long-distance space flight. They eat only high-protein liquids, blood plasma, things of that nature.
That's really interesting. And you said they were about 10,000 years old, or that's what they say. So that's interesting. That correlates with our moon.
They've been coming here for about 10,000 years.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So
their species is more like they've had technology for between 100,000 and 1 million years. They're far beyond our capabilities. They can do things that seem impossible to us. They're also highly intelligent. They're not as emotional as humans. They're maybe 3 times as intelligent as the middle caste. Maybe about 3 times more intelligent than an intelligent human, and they have very few emotions, though, and that they're kind of trying to remedy that with they've discovered that eliminating emotions was not a very good thing, and they're trying to eliminate that by incorporating us and these hybrids into their society. And they're also experts. They're also one big thing about the Greys is that they're like most aliens, they're telepathic, but they're also experts at mind control. They have a natural ability to mind control other beings that are within a certain range, usually within, say, 100 feet or so. And within that range, they can make humans see, touch, or experience whatever they want to, and it seems absolutely real, although it's not.
Right, yeah.
They can also download information directly from your brain and put memories directly into your brain, and those abilities can be amplified by their technology.
That sounds a lot like the hardware they use with psychotronics and covert mind control in my labs. But yeah, you have to ask where they got all that stuff, right? Where did they reverse engineered quite a bit of it from something?
They reverse engineered a lot of from the Greys. I don't think they would have even thought of all this on their own.
I don't really think so either.
A lot of science fiction is based on abductee reports, in my opinion. I just don't think Hollywood is as creative. And when you research what the aliens have, science fiction is very much like that. So it stands to reason that most of it's from abductee reports.
Right. And what do you think their point of origin is in location in the cosmos? Any ideas?
Well, 2 of their home planets may have been located through experiencer reports. One of them is Zeta Reticuli 4. We've heard a lot about Zeta Reticuli over the years. People have come forward and said that's where their home planet is. Well, that's the home planet of one of the gray species, and I'm not sure which one. I don't think it's the short grays. I think the short grays may come from another planet called 61 Ursa Majoris 3. Interestingly enough, that's also the home system of a hostile group of aliens in a popular set of science fiction stories. but
That's
uh,
interesting.
they told an experiencer friend of mine and I and her husband that that's where they came from on one experience.
That's
That
really
may be
interesting.
the home of the short grays.
Hmm. And you know what's interesting? We were talking about a little bit about those vehicles that literally don't have anybody in them, the unmanned ones. They almost seem like scouts. So I know you said they gather information. Or
Yeah.
what kind of information are they gathering?
Oh, everything, data on weather conditions, what nearby people are thinking, pictures of the terrain and human activity on it, activity of aircraft,
Hmm.
radiation levels. I mean, there's a lot of different types of information that they can gather. And by the way, the basketball size ones make most of the crop circles. They use they have these devices as well as full-size UFOs can generate a gravity beam, either pulling or pushing,
Hmm.
and they use it in pushing mode to create the crop circles.
Hmm. That's
These
interesting.
things form in a matter of seconds a lot of times.
Wow.
Uh,
And you know, I don't know if you ever remember this. I used to have this little pin that used to say aliens are real, the military doesn't exist. Did you ever see that? But
yeah, I
that's
think I've seen that.
I swear to you, because everything you describe is stuff that we have done covertly with our black sciences. So once again, it does dovetail into what they've been reverse engineering and what they don't choose to talk about. And it also explains why and how contactees are always being tracked and shadowed by covert intelligence, and that they are never left alone once they
Yeah,
have a true contact
they're
experience.
they're scared to death of us.
Mhm.
They think, and maybe rightly so, that that the aliens could push a button someplace and turn us into super soldiers that will do anything they say.
Well, I think that's highly
Uh,
probable, actually, considering
I
the weirdness on this terraform rock. Yeah, I could see that.
I think it's highly probable too. I know I don't remember 99% of it, but I've been put through a lot of brainwashing techniques and training and a lot of stuff like that. And
Hmm.
the persona I have now is not the one that I have when I'm with them. So
Interesting.
um, I
What are you
found that
more
out
like
through
with them, if I can ask?
um, kind of a kind of like this, but maybe more of a more supportive of the aliens and their agenda, and less supportive of humans and their agenda. I'm kind of unsupportive of humans and their agenda anymore in my normal state, but
Right.
um, they give everybody a. I'm not unique in that regard. They give everybody that's that's in what I call a Class 2 abductee program. That kind of training, they give them a separate personality track that's similar but not the same as their Earth personality,
I think you're
where
right on that for sure.
where
Yeah.
they're controlled, but they are somewhat controlled by the aliens in that personality state, not because they're directly controlled, but because they did engineer that personality to want to support the aliens a lot more, if you know what I
Right.
mean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's loyalty. I get that totally. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. It's almost like a home too. It feels like home. It's the only thing we know, comfortably speaking.
Yeah,
To
and
me anyway.
I almost think sometimes like the personality I have now might be like a almost like a shell that's less there's less to it than the one that they put there, if that makes any sense.
Right. Less animated.
Yeah.
Well, you're scientific anyway. You're a scientist though. That's pretty normal for you to be that way. But I can see where you're coming from. Yeah. I agree. There's no doubt
Well,
about that.
I strongly suspect that you're in the same program I am.
Yeah, I
So,
get that. Well, we've always gotten along and we've always, yeah, you and I've had some interesting experiences. There's no doubt.
yeah,
So yeah, I totally get we're on that same page of I don't know if it's the warrior mode or not. I'm not a warrior per se, but I guess I can be. But yeah, we definitely have that militarized programming. I can't explain it. Or at least it feels like that to
yeah.
me. Not in the military that we have here on this timeline though. Something very different. So
Well, no, the aliens that we come in contact with they are a high tech foreign military. I mean, they may or may not be typical of their society, but the ones that are coming here doing the abductions are part of their military and their space program.
mhm.
And so you know when people sometimes say they remind them of military people, and that's exactly right. They are, you know.
Mhm. And I like order. I'm a big weirdo when it comes to order. So I can't stand chaotic incidents. Like the chaotic stuff that's happening here, I really don't care for that. I like order. I like structure. So
Yeah, I like structure and order too, at least up to a point. But
Well, yeah,
um,
just
I,
organized, you know.
yeah, I mean, I can't stand illogic, especially excuse me, especially I don't like a disorganized mind.
Right, and you know, the cosmic design is logical too. It's expanded in consciousness, but it's logic. I mean, it flows. There's a flow to the cosmic design, and here you see this erratic rifting going on where it's fragmentation. It almost seems like fragmentation, like everybody's fragmenting off, which is very very interesting. And I was going to ask you, you know, the last time you were on my show, you touched a little bit on having some attacks from a potential maybe a different species or something, or maybe a military attack, a my lab. Did you get? How are you doing with that? Are you still getting any type of attacks or anything else, or no?
Well, the last attack I had was when somebody broke my leg. I mean,
Hmm.
it was either a Labs or the aliens. I'm not sure which, but I just remember falling asleep in my motorhome during the day. I felt really strange at that point. I just wanted to go back to sleep, so I went back to sleep in my motorhome during the day and woke up like 3 hours later in pain and on the floor and feeling highly drugged. And I went back to bed and hoping it was all a dream. And I woke up another half hour later with somebody banging on the door and in a lot of pain. And make a long story short, when I found out that my ankle was broken, I had damage to the ankle joint and knee damage, and the doctor said that was a bad twisting injury.
Mm.
Um, and he didn't believe my explanation of how I got it, but I was loath to tell him the truth, even though I wanted to.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
We were, labeled in some way, and um, it took about 8 months to get to the point where I was walking again without pain. I was walking on crutches
Mhm.
during
But you
that
haven't
time.
anything since. That's good. So nothing
No, I
since
haven't
then.
have done anything since. I do have reason to believe that there's been some sort of a smear campaign going on about me. In fact, experiencer lady I hadn't talked to in like 5 years, just called me today and told me that to watch out for that.
Oh.
And I know my ex-wife was part of it, and I don't know how big a role she played, but in any event, someone is going around doing that, and she said that the lady that called said that it was people that were associated with Dr. Leir that didn't want the truth to get out about the implants.
Well, I believe that because I can tell you point blank, Steve, you're about the only one who's credible. I mean, I know these other guys jumped on the bandwagon for their 20 minutes of fame and to promote more mainstream propaganda, if you ask me. And that's why I've always been like, you know, you're the real deal, and I can vouch for that. And that's why I've always
Thank you.
promoted you, and I always support you. And you know, these people they'll try it. I mean, I see copycats everywhere. I see people trying to run with other people's data. They steal their information, they steal everything, and they run with it, and they go on mainstream, on History Channel, and everything else. I'm getting tired of that. I keep promoting the people that I
Yeah,
know are real deal. I mean, and the ones that are the real deal usually do get attacked. They usually do try to do something
yeah,
to discredit them or sit there and
that's
do a
true.
character assassination. You see it all the time, and a lot of them are being triggered too. So let's not forget that. So, yeah. So I would
Yeah,
just, you know, blow it off.
I'm never gonna give up, but
Oh,
it is disheartening and upsetting at times. I mean, like for example, at the last UFO Congress, a man named Frank Kimbler that supposedly did some research on the Roswell debris got up during in his lecture on the Roswell debris and called me a fraud for my
what?
research on the San Augustine crash debris material that came down about the same time 200 miles to the west.
Hmm.
And I really resented that because nothing that I did in that analysis was fraudulent in the slightest.
Hmm.
And maybe people could call me a lot of things, but fraud is not one of them.
No, not at all. And it's
Um,
interesting how he picked you apart. You know, there are a lot of people out there, and he went after you. So that tells me something right there. But I would have said something to him. You know, that's you can't be doing that. You can't just slander. You know. Just sitting there doing his
yeah.
lecture and just bashing you. I don't think that's appropriate at all. I mean, really? He's got
Well,
to make his lecture about you?
yeah,
What's up with
think
that?
I think I will say something to him at some point.
What a
At
jerk.
that point, I was so emotionally drained from the divorce that was still going on that I just couldn't handle anything
Hmm.
else. So
Right.
at some point, especially if the man keeps it up, I definitely will sue him or at least say
I
something
would.
to him about it.
Is he a scientist? I don't even know who this guy is.
Supposedly, he's supposedly a professor of geology or
Oh,
something
screw
at
that.
New
You,
Mexico Tech. Or
it's really interesting. You get a lot of those shills wandering around, and I'll just call it out. I have to investigate it more, but I can tell you point blank. I know you're the real deal. I know you're the scientist. You have a scientific background, a professional chemistry background. For him to even suggest something like that, really, it pisses me off. So I'm sure it would piss you off. But yeah, these people don't get it, and if they have to make their speeches or their presentation about hacking or attacking somebody else, there's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was put up to bashing me by somebody else. At least that's the impression I got. Somebody
Right.
higher up.
Well, you know what? They don't want you doing what you're doing. I can tell you right there because you are probably the most credible person that I know that can actually research this stuff, decode it, and understand what you're looking at. I don't think they can, to be honest with you. I don't think they can. And they don't know crap about artificial telepathy. And where I've been with covert technology, that guy would have a nervous breakdown if he had a conversation with me. I'm sorry. But these people are what I call amateurs and cookie cutter
Sure.
programmed units. So,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, so I'm glad you addressed it though, and it is something that I would say, keep an eye on that, and don't let these people keep that or pursue that or try to give that smear campaign because that's just not appropriate at all. And I see it a lot. I see a lot of that pettiness in the UFO community. I'm not
Yeah.
part of the UFO community. I'm my own thing with covert technology. I have my books, my documentaries, but I see a lot of weirdness with these people. I mean, gotta pick them.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it too. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people quit the field in the UFO community after a while. I mean, it's fun at first, and then when you get backstabbed a few times, it ceases to be fun. I mean, I'm still gonna be in it just because I think that's where I should be
Oh,
at
that's
this
definitely where you need to
time.
be. Yeah, no, go into the
Um,
covert technology with what you're doing. I mean, with the implant analysis scan and whatever else you're doing. Yeah, I wouldn't walk away because of these jerks. No way.
no, there are some good people in the field that especially the abductees and experiencers
Hmm.
that benefit from people like us talking about it, and
Absolutely.
there's some genuine researchers out there that are not out to backstab anybody, and I'm in it for those people, and you just have to watch out for a lot of people in the field that are just in it to make money or get
Right.
famous or
And
something like
and they have
that.
ego too, Steve. That's another thing. He sounds
Yeah,
almost like he's jealous. People like that have egos, and you never
I
know.
agree. I agree.
But
I think he is jealous and the people that were associated with me on those analyses got the scoop on him on that particular crash.
I actually remember we had an interview. I remember interviewing you a couple of years back when you were talking about that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that. So yeah,
yeah.
well, just whatever. Let him go disappear somewhere, little jerk. But yeah, I don't like people like that at all. And we just kind of ignore them unless they get really, really bad. And then of course something needs to be addressed on that one for sure. But let me ask you a quick question here. Have implants changed over the years in connection with abductions or abductees or experiencers? Have you noticed any change insofar as the way people are being tagged or implanted?
I'd have to say to that there's not enough evidence not enough data in implant removal cases to say that for sure, but I would say probably not. I think this is
Hmm.
a mature technology with the Greys, and they've had it for a long time, and probably hasn't changed in a while.
Oh,
Um,
that's good. I was
and
just curious.
the places they're being put into seem pretty consistent over time from what I've seen, and the types of implants too.
Okay, so there's nothing new, or I was wondering if they were deploying any new technologies, but it seems like it's just the same kind. Well, that's good.
No, I think they've already. I think they perfected this technology long ago, and they can do whatever they want to with it. I'm sure they can come out with custom implants, and they probably got implants that we haven't seen yet,
Hmm.
or haven't removed and analyzed yet.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I tend to think it has not changed very much.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Well, what's also interesting is that they don't really need the physical implants, because they can use the signals, and that's much more effective than having a physical implant because that's just neurally kind of weaving into the technology, or the technology weaves into the
Yeah,
technology.
they can do a lot of this stuff without implants.
Hmm.
The presence of a physical implant makes the techniques a lot more effective a lot of times, though.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. So, what's your take on the new super soldiers? Are you noticing any more people being wired up for more of a super soldier, or what's your take on that whole thing with what's going on?
I have not seen any people that I know for a fact to be super soldiers. I've
Hmm.
met a few that say that they're in programs like a couple that are in programs like what you're talking about. But I wouldn't be surprised if the military is emphasizing these programs. But I don't really know. I don't have a lot
Hmm.
of firsthand data about that.
Right. Well, I'm pretty sure knowing the synthetic telepathy the way I do, I'm pretty sure it goes into the black technologies departments. But I'm always wondering how much more of it has been deployed locally in mainstream. And I'm pretty sure they've started to kind of roll out the carpet insofar as making synthetic telepathy, for example, and some other little upgrades more of the norm versus even just their version. Like I know Google was looking into it. I know Facebook, Zuckerberg, and some other people wanted to implement a program where synthetic telepathy was going to be part of their program and upgrading for being able to connect in psychically or tele-
Yeah.
telepathically with us. Of course, it's artificial, but once
Yeah,
again, that's a
they've had this for so long that it almost, if they declassified it, could be a normal part of everything if they wanted it to be.
right. And that's the problem is it becomes a psychological warfare program after that. That's the whole thing I've noticed is that it's not just about having conversation through synthetic telepathy. It's actually about warfare. And that takes on a whole different formula. So, yeah, these things are going to have to be regulated out the wazoo when they do decide to go anywhere open
Yeah,
with this.
yeah, I wouldn't go on to any kind of a program that had synthetic telepathy that was run by the government because there's too much of a chance that they would try to brainwash you with it.
Mhm. Oh, tell me about it. Yeah. I know it pretty well. I was going to ask you another question here about lasers in general. We hear all kinds of stories about lasers being able to disrupt things like airplanes and helicopters and whatever, from the ground. What about lasers disrupting any type of covert assault technology like psychotronic weapons or anything like that? Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, I mean, lasers could of course disrupt those kind of weapons by directly destroying the antennas and such. But as
Okay.
far as interfering with the signals, no, I don't think so.
I was curious about that. Okay. So the antenna
But
would
yeah,
be what you go after.
they
Okay.
definitely have laser weapons nowadays that could destroy any kind of psychological psychotronic weapon like that. But it'd have to be direct destruction rather than interfering with the signal.
Right. I like the cool toys. I'm kind of bummed that we didn't get the cool toys in the Batcave, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's from what I understand, it's easier to make phaser type weapons, at least at microwave wavelengths, than it is to make lasers. Lasers are very fragile and complicated, and finicky and low efficiency devices. Really, I mean, it's hard to get a power source big enough to power a laser beam that's powerful enough to be an effective weapon, but
hmm
a Tesla type death ray or phaser or whatever, call it what you will, is much more efficient and has the characteristics of the phasers in Star Trek, where a very low power beam will stun. Higher power beams can kill, and maximum power or reasonable power beams can vaporize things.
I like
You can
that.
also get yeah, me too, and you can also get more power out of those devices than you put in because some of it comes from the 0 point field, reportedly.
Wow. So that's what you need to be making. we get
Well, John Hutchison told me that everybody that's ever tried to make these devices outside government labs has been done away with. So I'm not sure I want to get into that, but
really. Yeah, I
for
don't. I
real. But
don't. I don't discount that at all. Actually, yeah, I was going to say you could get some private funding for that. And of course, if anybody wants to contact you, the best way to do that is through your website, right?
right, and my personal number is 805-625-2549. You can call me for an appointment or for a scan or to do consulting, or we can work out something along those lines if people like.
Excellent.
And I also have email address through my other website at Neutron Star Nanotechnology. It's steve@neutronstarnanotech.com.
Excellent. I love that. Like I said, I love the title of that company. So, and if they want to donate to help you, because I know that you do take donations and you're working on some private work. So, the best way to do that is how? Through your website?
I have a donation button that I believe is still active on my alien evidence website.
Good. And I know also you were working on the survival manual now, or survivor's
Yeah,
manual. How's that
yeah,
coming
yeah.
along?
It's coming along better. I felt like I was having writer's block for a while there. I still wasn't fully over the effects of my divorce, but that's been over for over a year now. So I'm starting to get back in the swing of things, and I wrote quite a bit the last couple months on it. So
excellent.
I'm gonna try to self-impose a deadline of getting it out by the end of the year.
I was going to say, I was just going to tell you have to have it out by the end of the year. I'm hoping that you can have it out by your birthday.
Yeah, I'll try.
I'm gonna light a fire under your butt.
All right.
I do that with everybody, though.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's just great to have you on tonight and just discussing a lot of this information here. And for the people who don't understand nanotubes, let's just give them a brief rundown in what a nanotube really entails.
Okay. Well, there's two common forms of carbon. There's black carbon, which is amorphous, or three common forms of carbon. Black carbon, which is amorphous. Diamond, which is a highly organized structure with single bonded carbon, where each carbon is surrounded by four others in a lattice. And that's, of course, crystalline and transparent if it's pure enough, and very hard and does not conduct electricity well. And there's also graphite, which is a layered structure of layers of carbon in a chicken wire type arrangement, with each carbon having three other carbons around it. And each carbon is double bonded to its neighbors. There's free electrons in that, pi-bonded electrons, which can flow, and so graphite is a good conductor of electricity along the plane of the sheet. And in graphite crystals, these sheets of carbon atoms are stacked and are held together very strongly by Casimir effect and van der Waals forces. And so anyway, each sheet, if you took a portion of it and rolled it up in such a way that the bonds were intact on the other side, form a tube with it, that'd be a carbon nanotube. And depending on the angle with which the wrapping occurs, the carbon nanotubes can be either metallic or semiconducting. And the metallic tubes conduct much better than anything else we know. I mean, it's almost like a superconductor. Very little electrical resistance, only contact resistance from the ends where you connect to whatever other material you're using to conduct the electricity. And the semiconducting tubes can be used to make transistors and diodes, just like semiconducting silicon and doped silicon and germanium can be used in conventional electronics. So you can actually have carbon nanotube electronics where you use metallic carbon nanotubes as the conductors and semiconducting carbon nanotubes as the components. And that's what these implants and some of these alien drones and devices use for electronics.
Very interesting. And you were able to build these, right? Because you were actually working on building some of these, correct or no?
No, I wasn't personally, but I know that some researchers in the universities are trying to build carbon nanotube electronics, and they've had some success. And it's primitive compared to what the aliens have, but they're working on it, and the aliens have apparently perfected the technology.
Oh, nice. That's very interesting.
And they've also combined it with another technology we're working on, which is reinforcing metals with carbon nanotubes dispersed in them. If you could disperse carbon nanotubes very, very well in metal, you could get some very strong materials with some interesting properties. Since carbon nanotubes are the strongest known material, they have a strength-to-weight ratio about 100 times that of steel superalloys. So you could get metals with comparable strengths if you dispersed carbon nanotubes well in these metals. And indeed, we may have seen some of that in the implant research. Patient number 17, or number 16 rather, had a P-shaped object, or a tiny P-shaped object in his wrist that was made of an iron alloy that had carbon nanotubes in it. The carbon nanotube concentration was the highest we've seen, and they were evidently extremely well dispersed because I couldn't see any on the SEM scanning electron microscope images. But there was a huge Raman signal that indicated carbon nanotubes, and this metal was so strong that not even diamond tools could cut it.
Wow.
It actually scared the machine shop guy.
Mhm. Yeah, I can imagine. That's pretty
Dr.
intense.
Leir, Dr. Leir said he thought it might blow up or something, and was worried. And we finally cut it with a laser and to see the interior. This arose because I needed to see the interior to try to find any structures inside, as well as just to seeing the surface. And I tried to cut it with a pair of wire cutters at first, thinking that it was weak, like some of the implants we'd seen, but it was extremely tough stuff. And I called Dr. Leir and said, "Well, Roger, I can't cut this thing." And so he said, "Okay, bring it over to me, and I'll take it to the machine shop." And he took it over there, and their diamond tools wouldn't even cut it. So
Wow. That's
you got to take it
impressive.
to a laser place.
Mhm. That's pretty impressive right there. How long did you know Roger for? Excuse me.
I met him in 2008 when I had the implant in my toe,
Okay.
and consulted with him about that. And he died in 2014, so 6 years.
Okay. Wow, that was 2008. That wasn't that far away, really, when you think about it. With that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's the year I found out for sure that I was an experiencer.
Yeah, mine was 2004, so that's interesting right there. There's a question for you here. Let's see here. It's what telemetry do the alien implants provide to either our governments or to the aliens? And also, he's asking about graphene, so you can address
Oh,
this.
well, graphene is these sheets of carbon atoms I was talking about in graphite. If you took just a little piece of one of those sheets, a few nanometers on a side, that would be a graphene plate. And graphene also has some unique properties, many of the same properties as carbon nanotubes, and it's also being actively researched right now.
Very, very
And
interesting.
as far as the telemetry is concerned, we really don't know. We know that they do give off radio signals, and that the radio signals presumably contain information, but what information, there's no way to tell at present. We'd like to do some more research on, or I'd like to do some more research on the implants still in the body, and try to translate some of this information and find out. But that has not been done yet. So we have speculated to think that they may be giving off information on physiological states, thoughts, sensory information, maybe even act as room bugs in some cases that
hmm
transmit sound directly to them.
It makes sense.
And some of this speculation is backed up by experiencer reports of what they think they've been told by the aliens. So
And how many experiencer reports have you actually? You must have written a ton of them. How many did you have under your belt, or how many would you estimate you've done over the years?
me personally,
hmm
it must be hundreds, if not thousands, by now. I
Wow.
seem to get taken according to the evidence I've seen with UFO, with alien-related dyes on my body, and the strange dreams that are often associated with these experiences, and
Do you keep
other
these
physical
reports?
evidence like scoop marks, and bruises and stuff like that. I seem to get abducted about once a week at least, on the
Wow,
average.
that's quite a bit.
Um,
So, yeah.
you probably do too, but it's normal not to remember anything.
I remember when you scanned me with that. What is it? Was it ultraviolet or whatever it is? That weirded
Yeah.
me out because I had no idea. So that
Yeah,
was,
we found quite a few dyes in your body, as I
yeah,
recall.
I remember. Yeah, and I didn't realize
And
that. I did not know that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it is really concerning. I mean, you don't remember anything. They're doing all this stuff to you, and it's kind of really upsetting because we all have secret lives. All experiencers have secret lives that even we don't know that much about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
even when you get regressed, I mean, you only get a fair idea of what's going on. It would take hundreds of regressions to find out everything, if you even could.
Right. And you've had several regressions. Like, how many have you had over the years?
I've had about 15, I would
That's
say.
pretty good. That's not bad.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, more than most that are trying to investigate those. So it's kind of expensive to do and time consuming and upsetting to a lot of people. So a lot of people don't get it done for that reason. They're afraid to know.
Right. And there's a question
Might be
here, real quick. I want to make sure we answer this. From let's
sure.
see here. Have you worked with David M. Jacobs and his book Walking Among Us: The Alien Plan to Control Humanity? from KC.
I've never worked with him, but I've talked to him, and I've read his books, and I think he's kind of more on the fear page than I would like to see as far as the alien agenda. But most of his stuff is right on the money as far as what they do during the abductions.
Mm-hmm. Right. And of course, we've talked about this before, but usually people who are contactees or have been picked up, it's not as negative as it is when you go into a my lab, or something pertaining to covert intel. It's like night and
By no
day.
means. By no
Right.
means. I mean, that it's far more upsetting and painful and just nasty in general to be abducted by human beings and to be abducted by aliens.
Right. And there is a lot of propaganda, just like you see the mainstream media propaganda, anti-extraterrestrial movies that are out, and all sorts of other things that are really making. I'm not saying everything's perfect, but I will say I think it's given to you according to not only your beliefs, but also if you have fear stored in you, that when you have an experience with something that's not from here or supernatural, whatever, it's not going to present itself in a positive way because of the programming of the person.
Oh yeah. Well, highly religious people are the worst as far as they'll always have a negative experience no matter how much the aliens tried to make it positive. I mean, that just doesn't fit into their belief system. Anything that's not human and not from here.
Mm-hmm.
And they think it's all demonic, and they believe that all aliens are. A lot of them believe in UFOs, but they believe that all aliens are demons and evil and all that sort of thing.
So weird, because we're extensions of the cosmos. I mean, your cells and atoms, every part of you is from space, is from the multiverse. So what is the deal?
I
When you
don't
look at it,
know. All I know is that my former in-laws are highly religious, and they apparently felt like everything alien or not human or not of the earth is of the devil, quote unquote.
well, there's electronic possession, and I could inform them on that. And that's not demonic. That's electronic. So that's a nice covert program for making people look like they're possessed. But I was going to ask you also. I know there was a doctor who was working on the surgery, because I know that Dr. Roger Leir isn't with us anymore. There's a replacement, obviously a doctor who can perform the surgery. Is he still doing that? I know I've touched on this before with you, but I can't remember if he's still doing it or not.
Doctor. Boy, I can't remember his name offhand, but Dr. Leir had a doctor that actually did most of the surgeries. Dr. Leir was only qualified or licensed to operate on feet.
Mm-hmm.
He was a podiatrist, but Dr. Matriciano was his name. He had Dr. Matriciano actually do most of the surgeries. He was a general surgeon, or is a general surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
But after Roger died, I called him to try to ask him if he was still interested in doing any surgical removals, if I could get funding, and he wouldn't return my call, so I gather he's out of it.
Wow. We really do need another doctor who's willing to do this. I don't know if there's anybody out there, but
I think there are a few, but I don't have any names offhand. But
I'll let you know if I come across anybody. Well, that's a dangerous thing. You're dealing with, it's like, you're dealing with a specific kind of technology that, and it's foreign to a lot of these people, especially these doctors, even if they're good. So you don't know how that's going to affect the host when they get these things removed.
Well, I do have reason to believe that it could be dangerous to remove some of these implants. Patient number 16 went into a deep depression after we removed the object from his wrist. And he called me a couple of times, and I tried to reassure him, and I was afraid he was going to commit suicide. He was so upset.
Wow.
So this is not a thing to be taken lightly, or people shouldn't think there will be no side effects if they get them removed. I understand some people's rush to get this thing out of me and everything if they find out they have an implant, but that's possibly not a good idea. I mean, we should tread carefully as far as just as removing these things is concerned.
Right. Yeah, it's a very different animal, so to speak. Reminds me of that movie Alien, even though it's not about that kind of alien, but you know what I mean. It's like it starts to connect into the host, and yeah, it just goes. To me, it just seems like it is kind of nano-based, because it does seem to weave itself into. Well, especially if you have anything around the neural circuits, it tends to weave into the neural circuitry and to other areas.
That's exactly what it does. I mean, they told me that. I remember them giving me a lecture on how the brain implants that they put up the nose work, and they're made of a conductive polymer. In fact, somebody gave me one that popped out of somebody's nose that didn't get all the way into the brain one time, and that was confirmed by my analysis. It is made of a conductive polymer, and the aliens said that once it hits the brain, it uses proteins that are present in the blood plasma to produce more conductive polymer and threads that are targeted that go to certain areas of the brain with the structures they want to connect to, and form these connections to allow the implant to gather data from the rest of the brain. It can also influence the rest of the brain too, and produce certain moods and implant thoughts, memories, stuff like that. So they do have a certain amount of control over you once they have that implant in your brain.
Right. Well, yeah, because it makes a lot of sense to me, because it's not going to just let you do your own thing. It's going to be there to interact and, to me, do some kind of a control to some degree.
Yeah, the implant also enables the aliens to see what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, and probably hear what you're thinking as well.
Right.
Yeah. And gather data about you in real time. It turns the subject into a walking bug, basically.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
All that's going into their computer system, and I think that's why also that they have a lot of the abductees develop strange obsessions about certain hobbies and things like that. They want people to be total experts on narrow areas, because once that abductee becomes an expert, they know all that they know. So it's a shortcut to getting a lot of information about a society, I would think.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's ebb and flow kind of thing. And also, for those of you who are listening, Steve Colbern actually did the implant analysis scan on me when I was in California, in Los Angeles. And you can see this on my documentary DVD, Eye of the Remote Disclosure and Covert Technology. That's on my website, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. It's for sale, but I encourage everybody to take a look. If you're not familiar with Steve, Steve is the real deal, and it's fascinating science. And once again, I'd like to see more funding, Steve. I'd love to be on a team with you and me and a really good hardcore surgeon and maybe some other people to get together and start resurrecting some of this again, because there's so many people out there. We really need to just go full speed ahead. We can't rely on other people. I can't rely on these people in the black sciences to do anything productive. I mean, they're doing their own trip, but the problem is when they start pulling people into these projects, it becomes our problem. And it's up to us, and also we are obligated, and we have to go in and look at this technology just for our own sanity.
Well, I'd love to do that. The only thing stopping us is funding. I mean, as I say, there's some sort of a smear campaign going on against me. I hope I'm wrong, but it almost seems like there's some aspect of that trying to keep me from getting a high-paying job. I've been trying to get some kind of a high-paying job in my field for a while now, and can't seem to do it. I had a job a few months ago, and was abruptly terminated for reasons best known to themselves. Ironically, it was in an area of medical implants.
Wow.
So maybe somebody didn't want me working in that field. I don't know, but
there's sabotage going on. I think that those of us who have a great deal of knowledge and insight and information tend to get in that area of I don't know what to call it. I don't want to say you're blacklisted, but I think it can be difficult at some point. People Google people, and all of a sudden it becomes a Nightmare on Elm Street. And there's this running joke that Jerry B and I have called "bitch in the background," because whenever there's a sabotage, and I can speak for myself, there's a bitch in the background. I don't care if it's a male or a female. I swear.
Yeah, there certainly is in my case. I'm not sure how like I say, I'm not sure how big a role she played in this, but she definitely was working with the government trying to discredit me at one point.
Well, it's really a shame. Well, we'll see what we can do to get maybe some private funding going on, but I'm pursuing this more and more. I have every intention of trying to get to the new administration and communicate some of this information that I know very intimately about covert technology and synthetic telepathy and what it does on a physiological, psychological level, and also how it affects the body and what they've been doing for entrainment programming and things like that. So I'm just going to keep going full speed ahead. But we have a lot of integrity, and I know you have a lot of integrity, and we're not going to let people slow us down. We'll just keep going, keep your integrity, and we'll get there. But I encourage everybody to contact Steve if you have any questions whatsoever. Especially, I know I send people to you all the time, Steve, so hopefully they're contacting you. There are always people out there. I mean, they send me pictures of stuff that's happening to them, and that's not really my area to look at these things, especially when they're having I don't know, what more than scoops coming out. I mean, just things are happening to these people. So it's definitely important that we send them to someone like you. And I know there's some other people out there, but I don't trust the other ones that are out there. To me, they're just cookie cutter types that I can't trust.
Yeah, speaking of scoops, I found a brand new scoop mark on my arm a couple months ago, for
Hmm.
example.
See, that's really interesting. I know you're not like there's so many people out there with a scoop thing, and so I'm not sure what that's all about. It are they taking skin samples? Was it actually a friend of
Skin
mine?
sample.
What's
Yeah,
that?
it's a skin sample.
Okay,
It's a skin sample that they use to, among other things, do implants with. A lot of the implants have an epithelial tissue layer around them,
right.
and they probably do it to connect or to collect genetic data from you as well.
Well,
And
there was a picture I sent to you of a friend of mine, and she's been on my show before, and she's an animal communicator, plus she's a natural psychic. But her name's Renee Colson. I'm pretty sure you know who she is. She discussed hers,
yeah,
but I sent a picture, and she had the scoop thing going on, and it was just like bizarre. I mean, it's just like overnight, like I think within hours or something. And it's not like people just sit the wrong way and there's a mark there.
no,
I have a logical brain, and I can assess things like that. I always look for the norm, but this was there's some weirdness going on. There's no doubt.
it's a perfect little hemispherical mark. They often put them in on the lower legs or the inside of the elbow joints or the inside of the knee joints. It's a perfect little hemispherical mark, usually about it looks like a piece of skin has been scooped out, usually about 3 or 4 millimeters in diameter.
Wow,
Um, and
that's really
anybody
interesting.
that has one of those is most likely an experiencer.
I think there are a lot more
Bizarre.
people that are, and then I'm still questioning how many people get picked up during the week. I've talked to various people who do this kind of research, and it seems to me like they say there's an increase. Like they're just getting slammed with people having all kinds of whether it's a supernatural experience or a contactee experience. So have you noticed that as well?
An increase in number of experiencers?
Activity, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been going up steadily the past 20 years or so.
Wow.
Um, and there are a lot of people that get taken very frequently too. I call them class 2 experiencers, people like us that have the implants and the training, and we actually have a rank in the alien program and assist them in their agenda.
hmm
Um, and
It's really interesting. Well, I don't know what my rank is, but I'm ready to rock and roll off planet. I want
yeah,
my craft, man. I want to get out of here.
well, you should get regressed. I'm sure. I'm sure you'll remember being off planet.
I don't want to do that because I have too much going on. I've told people that before. I'm really sketchy about trying to get regressions done right now. But because I still have the interface. I have all stuff that measures. I've got technology built into me, so I won't know if that's the technology registering and communicating or it's me. So maybe that's the whole idea behind it, right?
Yeah, probably that's one of the things.
But it is interesting, and yeah, I always tell people, you never know. That's why you have to be really careful if you go under, because you want to make sure, first of all, you trust the person, and also
Yeah,
you don't want anything to be like an altar or something to be activated. Or maybe, I look at some of these people, and I'm not saying these people in regression are doing their jobs wrong or anything, but I would say you have to be really careful with people because you just don't know what's going to come in. So,
yeah, yeah.
have you ever had any altar slip through while you were in regression?
I've had my alien boss want to talk through me a couple times during regressions. Yeah,
Wow,
that's
interesting. Did you ever speak an alien language of any kind?
yeah. Actually, I freaked my ex-wife out by speaking a language that she said sounded like German, but wasn't. When I was half asleep one time,
That's
um,
interesting.
I was asking her to I fell asleep with my clothes on, and I was half asleep and could barely move, and my wallet was really uncomfortable, and I asked her to take my pants off, and I was speaking a different language and realized I wasn't speaking English, and she she said she was saying, "What are you saying?" And I repeated the command in a commanding tone in the same language she didn't understand, and my mom said, what is he talking about? What language is he speaking?"
Wow,
And
that's interesting.
I realized later that that's a language that a lot of people, a lot of abductees and hybrids speak aboard ship.
That's really
Probably.
interesting because if you talk to Misha Johnson, she speaks the galactic language too, and I've heard her talk about something, and to me it sounded almost German. I can't. You might recognize it actually, but she was
Probably
doing
would.
that, and I was like, wow, because sometimes it almost sounds like a foreign language here that you'd hear on this planet, but at the same time it's not. You can tell it's something else. So it's not made up. I mean, these people are streaming something, okay? I don't know what it is, but it's wild.
Well, she said I was really annoyed that she wasn't obeying right away, and that she couldn't understand me. So I think it really freaked her out.
Well, you need a tape recorder next time that happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I was in that state for, I guess, a couple of minutes and was talking this language, and then I finally woke up and switched over to English again.
Oh, that's good. Well, at least you know you speak the language, whatever that is. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting right there. We're just about out of time here, Steve. I have to thank you so much for joining us here. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I consider you just one of my specialists here with the sciences, and I'd love to have you on as a regular. So, thank you so much for joining us. And also, once again, if people want to reach out to you, tell them the best way to do that.
All right. As I say, my cell phone number is 805-625-2549, and my alien email, or rather website address, is www.alienevidenceinc.webs.com, and there's a donate button on that side if anybody wants to donate to the research.
Awesome.
All donations will be used for research, and I have an email address on my other website, my NeutronStar Nanotechnology website, which is Steve at neutronstarnanotech.com.
Perfect. All right, Steve, we're just about out of time here, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for the great questions. And please stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mickey coming up next to sell you on into the night from down under with their fantastic show. Their topic tonight is going to be ancient technology, so make sure you stay tuned. All right, everybody, have a great week, and until next time, bye, Steve.
All right, see you later.